Hey, Alter Everything listeners. We know that turning raw data into insights can be time consuming and challenging, but we've got good news for you. Alteryx can transform your analytics. Alteryx drives positive business outcomes by enabling fast, data driven decisions. And you can try out our products today. Start your 30-day free trial of Alteryx Desktop or the Analytics Cloud platform at alteryx.com/altereverything. Welcome to Alter Everything, a podcast about data science and analytics culture. I'm Megan Dibble, and today I'm talking with my colleague Debbie Nakakande about her work on the Launchpad path and her tips for getting started with Alteryx. Let's dive in. Hi, Debbie. It's great to have you on our podcast today.
Hi, Megan. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, of course. Could you give a quick introduction to yourself for our audience?
Sure. My name is Debbie. I'm a senior customer success manager here at Alteryx. I'm based out in London, and it's actually currently very sunny. Got a little bit of a heat wave going on, so based out in the UK.
Cool. So I wanted to have you on today to talk about Launchpad. I was hoping you could walk us through the Launchpad path that you've built out on the Alteryx community.
Sure. So, Launchpad essentially is a prescriptive program that aims to provide users with a learning path that not only introduces them to the value of Alteryx, but also equips them with the necessary resources in order to continue their Alteryx journey. So, it sits on the community page and is available for Alteryx Designer, Intelligent Suite, Server, and Auto Insights. And it's made up of short form videos and resources which is designed to cater to different learning styles.
Awesome. So, how does it work when somebody goes on to start their path on Launchpad?
So each path has a set of modules, and at the end of each module, there is an onboarding action for users to complete. And once they've completed the onboarding action, they will receive a shiny new badge for their community profile.
Nice.
It's a lot of fun, and I'd highly recommend having a go if you haven't already.
And I heard that it's connected into Mission Control now. Is that right?
Yeah, so we quite recently integrated into Mission Control. And for those of you who don't know, Mission Control is a central hub for users to manage their analytics journey. It's got a wide range of resources, allowing customers to find community knowledge base articles, product documentations, and also manage their cases. Back in May, we recently launched Launchpad, and users are presented with a checklist, and this lays out the steps required in order to complete their journey and earn a badge.
Very cool. So you can track your progress as you're going through. Can
Exactly.
other people see that progress, or is it just for you to be able to keep track of?
It's just for you to view and keep track of how far along you are within each of the programs.
Gotcha. I was curious if you were given a designer license and you'd never used Alteryx before, where would you start?
That's a great question. Prior to joining Alteryx, I hadn't used Alteryx before.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I'd say the Mavericks community is a great place to start with resources such as Launchpad. You've got the getting started interactive lessons and also the learning paths. And if your company has a subscription, the learning marketplace is filled with some great training. But I think for me, it was really important to get into the product, and the weekly challenges were a great place for me to do that. I learn by doing. So I would do two weekly challenges a day, one in the morning, one in the evening, and I would approach them like brain teasers and puzzles. So that was a great way for me to kind of get more hands on in the product. And finally, the certifications. That was a great way to test my knowledge. First, by starting off with the micro credentials, but now you can actually stack them to earn your core certification. So I'd say exploring the Mavericks community, there's a ton of great resources there.
I love that you did the weekly challenges on a daily basis. The daily challenges, that's pretty
Yes.
intense, but it can be pretty fun if you treat it as like a puzzle, as though you were just doing your daily Wordle or whatever.
Exactly that. And then also they're broken down into tool palettes. You can test different functionality. So Monday might be, your prep and blend, but then on the Friday, you might be doing spatial and testing that functionality. So, yeah, it was a lot of fun. I definitely enjoyed it.
Yeah, that's great. I also felt like when I was learning Alteryx, like going in and doing it, just putting pedal to the metal and trying it out on use cases and stuff and on data that I knew was pretty helpful. You can read all of the stuff on community, you can look at the sample workflows, but sometimes it just takes actually pulling the data onto the canvas and
Yeah,
just trying some different tools and seeing what it does to your data. That can be like a really effective way to get started and to start to really learn how it works. At least for me, everybody learns differently. But
exactly.
so you came to Alteryx, you learned the software, you took the certifications. Was it challenging to take those certifications? Did you pass on your first time or how did it go?
I definitely didn't pass on my first time.
Me neither.
And I had to be okay with failing it. And I think failing it was such a blessing the first time round because it really identified the areas that I needed to work on and focus on.
Mhm.
And sort of you kind of rip the band-aid and you know exactly what you need to work on. So no, I didn't pass the first time round. It took me a couple of attempts, especially, coming from a place where I'd never used the platform before. But the interactive lessons are broken down in a way in which you can actually double down and focus on those areas and then bolster it with the weekly challenges. So it took a lot of practice. The weekly challenges again really helped me solidify my
Mhm.
knowledge, but I guess you have to be okay with failing it and just being open to the fact that it's just a learning experience and be open to the journey.
Yeah, definitely. I remember when I started as an analyst at a previous company, my coworker was like, "Let's just try it." And I'm like, "Okay." And then he messaged me and he was like, "I got a 60%." This was on the core one and I was like, "Oh, shoot. It's kinda hard." It's
It's really hard.
yeah, it definitely took taking it once to be like, "Oh, this is the kind of style of it," and brush up on some of the tools that you might not have used as much in your job if you're already using it. So,
Exactly. And I think I guess when we took it, it was just a core certification path, but now they have the micro credentials. So it kind of breaks down the core certification into smaller chunks,
yeah, it's
which is
nice.
a bit more digestible. And then you can stack them up to, earn your core certification. So
Yeah, I think that's great, especially if you don't have as much time or if sitting down for like a 2-hour time test kind of makes you nervous. Maybe you haven't done
yes.
that since like college. The micro credentials are a nice, smaller, more achievable time frame. You have to commit to that.
Exactly.
Also, when we were both at Inspired together, which was super fun, and hanging out at the community booth, I noticed that, like, a lot of Alteryx users came up and they were maybe using the software, but they wanted to help get others at their company started using it. They wanted to just see more people activate their license or use it, like, in their day-to-day job, but they weren't seeing that adoption. So, what advice would you give to those people to enable them to kind of upskill others at their company?
Yeah, it was also great to connect with all the Maverick community users and yourself at
Yeah, it's so
Inspire. It's
fun.
not often that I get to do that. It's a lot of fun. But I would recommend giving them a use case that they can relate to and data that they are familiar with. This helps people really understand the value of Alteryx because they are working with data that they continually use on a day to day basis and processes that they are familiar with. So I definitely recommend giving them a use case. And we have, the Alteryx use cases on the community, which is a great place again to start. It's filled with like a library of customer stories, which you can sort of read and download. And it's sliced and diced by department, by industry, by region, with just examples of how other organizations have used Alteryx to become more data driven.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, we were talking earlier about the weekly challenges, and as fun as those are, sometimes you're like, what does coffee and tea sales in the US have to do with my job as a tax accountant? So
Yeah.
having data that you're familiar with definitely can drill in the value of Alteryx, I think, a little bit more. And I also found back when I was an analyst that showing people how Alteryx can save them time in the long run was helpful. So if I had helped someone else in their department with Alteryx, or if we had some kind of success story in another place in the company, you could say, oh, check out what we did here. This was kind of similar. They were using Excel maybe, and it was a super manual process, lots of hours. We implemented Alteryx, and now it takes 5 minutes. And so it can be hard if they're the ones that have to teach themselves how to use the software and build it. But when you look at the long-term time savings, it's definitely worth the investment upfront.
Exactly. I guess to add to that, you mentioned before the starter kits and the pre-made workflows that we have.
Mm,
If you're not sure how to build out a business solution to your question, this is a great way to kind of kickstart your workflow. I believe they can be downloaded on the products and licensing page, but that's again
yeah.
something that's sliced and diced by industry and department. So if you're not sure how to even get started building your solution, the starter kits are a great way to start.
Yeah, definitely, and you can click through the workflow and see how they chose to manipulate certain types of data, or I think I remember there's one about finding the nearest customers to your stores, or like some spatial stuff that was interesting that helped me. I didn't really understand how to use the spatial tools at first, or like
Yeah.
what it would look like to use the spatial tools since I hadn't really done analysis like that. So those were definitely helpful as well to review. Awesome. So we've been talking a lot about learning and upskilling and everything. And I think for a lot of people, learning new software can be challenging. So I was curious if you had any tips for when you get stuck, like how do you persevere?
I would say ask for help. Don't be afraid to ask for help. And the Alteryx community is filled with literally a community of people who are willing to help you. And I believe, the average response time is 58 minutes, which is incredible.
Yeah.
So I definitely recommend posting your question on the community. But I can also appreciate that it can get quite frustrating when you're not sure what to do, or you're at a blocker and you're not sure how to configure a certain tool. So I always find, taking some time out, taking 5 minutes, go for a walk, unwind, and then coming back to your workflow or to your problem always helps, because you never know. You might find the solution on a long walk.
Yeah. Sometimes if you're just staring at the screen for too long, you kind of
Yeah.
start to go in circles, and that's never fun. So I think definitely getting fresh eyes, whether it's your fresh eyes because you took a break or the fresh eyes of somebody else. Sometimes I would be stuck on something and then I would ask a coworker or my manager to come in, and immediately they're like, "Oh, why are you doing this?" Or they just ask a question. I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh, yeah."
Yeah.
All it takes is one question and maybe innocently asked, but it's like, "Oh, yep, that doesn't make sense. The way I started this really didn't set this up
Yeah.
right." So, it's always
Which I think kind of speaks to the point of, there are so many ways you can get to that final solution in Alteryx, and
yeah.
everyone will approach their workflow building in different ways. So getting some advice and getting, like you said, a fresh set of eyes on the data set is a good way as well.
Yeah, that's super true that there's lots of different ways to solve the same problem.
Yeah.
Like I see a lot of people on community looking for best practices, and we do have stuff on best practices, but at the end of the day, there are often 3, 4, 5 ways you could get to your answer. And some people want to know, well, did I do this right? Did I use the fewest
Yeah.
tools or use the right formula and the fewest steps? But like when you're first starting out, as long as you're getting to that answer, it's great.
Yeah.
And then you can start to look at other people's solutions maybe on the community and see, oh, they solved this in a really elegant way. They used like half as many tools as I did. And I've heard some
Yeah.
people talking about the weekly challenges too. They post their solution and then you look at other people's and you're like, oh, okay. There's an easier
Yeah.
way to do that. And you start to just refine those skills. And then all of a sudden you're building workflows faster and more efficiently as you learn from other people who are more experienced.
Exactly. And that you're opening up your mind to different functionality and different tools that you can use to solve the same solution or get to the same outcome. So I'm a huge advocate for the weekly challenges.
Yeah, and I think our community is really awesome for asking those questions like you mentioned. The response rate is great and people are super helpful, and sometimes you just get to a place with a certain business problem where you're like, "I need someone to show me how to do this on my exact data set." A tutorial video isn't gonna help because I don't know how to parse this exact address or something, so that's when, like, going on those discussion forums can be super helpful, and people are just really nice on our community. I love it. You know,
Yeah.
if you go on Stack Overflow for coding, sometimes they get upset with you. They downvote. They downvote
Yeah.
you. They're like, "Well, didn't you read this?" Or
No, I
whatever.
didn't.
You're like,
It
"No,
can
I
also
still
get
don't
quite
understand."
overwhelming. Yeah,
And they, like,
exactly.
downvote. But anyway, the people in our community are really nice, and even if a question has been asked before, a very similar question, they'll help you find your answer, and some people will even come back and be like, "Hey, the above solution is good, but did you know you could also make a macro for this, make it even easier?" Or something like that, which is so cool. I love that.
I just want to say it's important to know, even if you don't want to give your exact data set,
Mm.
even just a dummy data set of what it looks like is a great way. And people, will download it and configure it and then post up their solution. So, like you said, the community is a great place and everyone is super nice and willing to help, which I love.
I'd love to hear about what you're working on now and what excites you about your work.
Yeah, so at the moment, I'm currently working on developing some Launchpad paths for the cloud. I'm really excited for the Alteryx cloud products because we're starting to put Alteryx in the hands of a lot more people, which is really, really exciting. So, some paths to be looking out for would be Designer Cloud Designer Experience, which is really exciting and just recently launched actually on the Mavericks community, as well as some upcoming ones, which would be Designer Cloud Core and the machine learning path. So, very excited for where cloud is going. And yeah, look out for those paths.
That's great. Yeah, I've been working on a lot more cloud blogs and content, and I've enjoyed using the different software that we have, whether it's Auto Insights, machine learning, Designer Cloud, using it like in the browser and playing around with it is super fun. It gets me really excited about the future as we just kind of expand those products even more. And I do think it'll make it more accessible to people at a company. I mean, if you're on a Mac, it's easy to open up in your browser, which is a great benefit. And also, just if your data is in the cloud, being able to keep it there and do all of your work in the cloud is really exciting to me.
Yeah, for sure. I've always wanted a Mac. So to have Ultrex Designer or to be able to access it on a Mac is a huge win. So I love it. I love it. And again, Auto Insights has been, it's so easy just to kind of hop on your browser and upload your data from the cloud into the platform directly and analyze it. So yeah, very excited for the cloud products.
Well, we'll be looking out for those upcoming lessons. It's super exciting. It was great having you on our podcast today. Thanks so much for sharing about the Launchpad program and just tips for getting started. It was super fun to chat with you.
Thank you, Megan. Thank you for having me. And I look forward to speaking with you soon.
Thanks for listening. To check out the resources mentioned in this episode, head over to our show notes on community.alteryx.com/podcast. And if you liked today's episode, leave us a review. See you next time.